Alright, it's October 15th in Carlsbad, California, my house.
And my name is Leff. I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the 18th of August, 1929.
And the people attending the interview are Nick, Dallas, and Philip Wright. And the organization is the Boy Scouts of America. Alright, what war and branch of service were you in?
I was in the Navy Nurse Corps, and I served in Vietnam aboard the hospital ship USS Repose.
What is your rank?
Captain.
And where did you serve?
I served various duty stations. And now, are you referring to primarily maybe Vietnam, or are you referring to all my duty stations?
Just a location.
Location: St. Albans, New York, Guam, Japan, Midway Island, Vietnam.
Alright. We're going to start with jogging memory. So, where were you drafted or did you enlist?
No, I volunteered. I enlisted
Where were you living at the time?
in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
And why did you want to join?
Well, as banal as this may sound, I wanted to join because of being patriotic, wanting to serve my country, and also to tend to the military men and women that served.
Alright, why did you pick the service branch you joined?
Well, I'll tell you a little story. I was working night duty in pediatrics, and just about every morning at 3 o'clock in the morning, there would be a very patriotic Navy program that would come on, and that inspired me to join. And the other thing, I really liked their uniform.
Alright. Do you recall your first days of service?
My first days?
Yeah.
Yes, because I reported into St. Albans, New York, and that's where they taught us how to salute, to be military, to be officers.
Alright, what did you feel like? What did it feel like?
Great deal of pride, that's what it felt like. You know, I really felt like I was part of the military, and many people have asked this, did you feel like you're a nurse or a naval officer? I happen to be a naval officer that happens to be a nurse.
Alright. Did you have any boot camp or training experience?
While I was at St. Albans, we had a gunny sergeant march us, help us to salute, when to salute, when not to salute, how to wear your uniform. Yes.
Did you remember your instructors?
No, I can't say I do.
Alright, and was it hard to get through, or it was?
No, it wasn't difficult to get through, not at all.
And now we'll go into your experiences. So again, which wars did you serve in?
I served in Vietnam from 1966 to 1967.
Now where exactly did you go?
Well, I was aboard the hospital ship, the USS Repose, off the coast of Vietnam, and the areas that we covered was Chu Lai, Phu Bai, Don Ha. Is that what you needed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, and then, do you remember arriving your first stop?
Yes, in fact, I reported into Vietnam, and they did not know where the ship was located at that particular time, so I remained in the emergency unit in Phu Bai.
What was your job or assignment?
Charge nurse, but basically the surgical ward and the neurosurgical wards.
Alright, did you see any combat?
The combat that I did see was visualized through the eyes of the patients that were
With you, alright. And were there many casualties on the ship?
quite a few casualties. I have it written down, but I couldn't say off the top of my mind how many, but many casualties. The Repose was kept very, very busy.
Okay, what was the name of your ship?
USS Repose, AH-16.
And what did you do?
Basically, as I said, I worked the surgical ward and the neurosurgical ward.
And that's just being a nurse.
That's just being a nurse, taking care of the patients,
All right.
yes.
And were you ever injured?
No.
Alright, what was a typical day like?
It's very hectic, okay, very challenging, heartbreaking, but very rewarding. because you could really care for the men and take care of them and heal them.
All right, were the doctors good?
The doctors were exceptional.
Were they nice?
Very nice. We had, in fact, it's a camaraderie that one has. Once you meet these doctors and the nurses and the corpsmen, you become a family, you become a unit. And this remains with you for the rest of your life.
And how did you deal with the death of a patient?
It was very hard, the death of a patient. We had what we called death watch, and I recall watching this young man slowly die. It was hard.
All right, how long did you serve on your ship?
A year.
And were you always on the same ship?
Always on the same ship. We went into port occasionally for R&R, but most of the time we were out to sea from 40 to 60 days.
And how many other nurses were with you?
Approximately 25 nurses.
And were you all like friends?
Oh, to this very day, we're the best of friends.
All right, and was your ship ever fired at?
No, it wasn't fired at, Chandler, but there was an incident where someone did try to come out and put a bomb at the ship, to blow up the ship. And I think one of the biggest demoralizing factors that could happen would be if they did blow up that ship. For our military men to see this, it would be devastating. But we were defenseless. We had nothing to protect us. We were just a hospital ship taking care of the wounded.
All right. Were you ever awarded any medals or citations?
Yes, the Navy unit accommodation we received. And you know, Chandler, I will send that to you as to the dates when that happened, okay?
And then, now we're just gonna talk about like life on the ship. And how did you stay in touch with your family?
Letters,
All right.
basically letters.
And what was the food like?
Oh, the food was outstanding.
Go ahead. What did you eat?
What did I eat?
Yeah, what was all that?
I think the biggest joke was that I was one person that didn't particularly care for lobster, and they would have it periodically on Friday, so I would wind up eating peanut butter sandwiches at that time. But they had everything available. Food, steak, potatoes, vegetables.
All right, and did you always have plenty of supplies?
Always had enough supplies on hand.
Did you ever feel pressure or stress?
Oh, I think you do. I think you feel pressure. I think you feel stress just because of the combat casualties that you see. And something that you really want to do, every nurse, every doctor, every corpsman, you want to give your all. You really do. And I think this wears you down as well. So.
And was there something special you did for good luck, or?
No, not really.
All right, and how do people entertain themselves?
Oh, there's very little. We had movies, you had games, you had a couple of Red Cross workers aboard the ship as well that would get entertainment going for both the staff as well as patients.
Were there ever entertainers?
We had Raymond Burr, we had Martha Ray. I can't recall all the others. You remember that?
And then, what did you do on leave?
Oh, would sightsee, would travel, would just become oriented with the culture of wherever I happened to be.
On the ship, did you ever recall any like particularly humorous or unusual events?
Well, you could call it humorous in one way. I happened to be drawing up some morphine to give to a 19-year-old Marine, and I did not hear collision, collision. So when I was drawing up the morphine, I looked out through the porthole, and we were just scraping along with the oiler. And humorous in one way, because then we had to go into port, and we had a large Band-Aid put on the front of the ship, and things like that, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah. And then were there ever pranks that others would pull?
Not really, no.
Did you have photographers?
There were photographers aboard, yes. We had everything aboard the ship. We had a postal clerk, we had photographers, we had cooks, we had stewards, we had a laundry.
And what did you think of all these people and fellow officers and soldiers?
Oh, I had the greatest respect for them, the greatest respect, and also for the staff. When I tell you that the staff gave their all, they really did. And when I say these young Marines were just absolutely marvelous. In fact, many did not want to complain, and this is, I said, when I gave that 19-year-old his medication, he did not want to ask for anything. So, very stoic, very strong.
And did you keep any personal diaries?
Not a personal diary. What I do have are quite a few letters from the patients, and the one in particular is a 19-year-old Marine, Bob Monahan, that came aboard with shrapnel wounds, and he was the one I was drawing up the morphine to give to him. And I sat down on his bunk and held his hand, and all he said to me was that you're such a nice lady. After he said that, I started to cry. I'd been aboard the ship 6 months, and that was my first time that I cried.
And is there any other events or stories that you'd like to share with us?
Yes, we had to go into the Gulf of Tonkin. That's when the USS Forrestal had their fire. And we took off 33 burn cases and 77 dead bodies. Out of all that, Chandler, I've drawn a blank. I can see myself going in. I can see the battleships around us to protect us because we had no way to protect the hospital ship. Take us into the Gulf of Tonkin. Could see the USS Forrestal listing and bringing the Forrestal out, and they followed us. My problem is that, and I don't know whether it's a problem, I think the brain sometimes does this for you to protect you. I don't recall one patient being taken off the Forrestal or the bodies. I've drawn a blank completely for that, and maybe it's a protective mechanism.
All right. And did you recall the days that your service ended?
Yes, because my service ended. Are you referring after I left the ship? Did you say the service ended, or when I retired?
Either or.
Okay, let me give you both. Okay,
Right.
I was on the ship for a year, and that was from October '66 to October '67. Then I was detached, and then when I retired in Jacksonville, Florida, in 1975.
And what was the difference? What were you doing in Jacksonville?
I was the assistant chief nurse.
All right. And where were you when your service ended?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh.
And then I retired there and then decided to come back out to California.
Did you work or go back to school?
No, let me explain something to you too. I spent 8 years on active duty and got out after 8 years, and I went to Syracuse, New York, and received my BS degree in nursing at that time, and then decided to come back on active duty, and that was from 1963 to 1975.
Okay. And did you recall, did you see your family after when you got back?
No, I didn't. I didn't go straight home. I stayed with a friend in Utah, and maybe this was a little better than going home to family because I found myself crying just about every single day, going through an awful lot of guilt. You do go through guilt of you're safe and you have left them behind, the patients, and it was difficult. So I didn't go home right away.
So the war was still going on when you went home?
Yes, definitely.
And did you make any close friendships while you were in service?
Oh yes, let me tell you, the camaraderie that you have with the nurses and the doctors and the corpsmen aboard the ship, this is the closest I've ever come to anyone, and to this very day, we're still very, very close.
And do you continue these relationships?
Yes, I do, and I see them quite often, and I shouldn't say quite often, when we have reunions, then I see them at that time.
Did you join a veterans organization? Okay. Did your military experiences influence your thinking about war or military in general?
Well, I think, yes. if we could just do away with all of this war. And we talk about World War II, it was going to end all wars. We talk about Korea, we talk about Vietnam, and here we are in Iraq and Afghanistan. Does this bother me? Yes. Are we learning anything? I doubt that very much, or we wouldn't be going on with all these wars. No. Besides, I don't want any more wars. I don't want to see any of you involved in any of this.
Okay. And did your service and experiences affect the rest of your life?
No, you know what I can say? The one thing it did is that I no longer take things for granted. Think of peace, think of freedom, think of liberty. And I don't take this for granted any longer. Even the simplest things, to be able to take a shower, you no longer take it for granted, particularly after spending a year aboard the ship.
Okay. And is there anything else you'd like to add that we have not covered so far?
Oh, I don't think so. I think the things that stick in my mind would be the young man on death watch. And all I can say is that I pray and hope that I held his hand, that I told him I loved him. And that I gave my very all in the care of him.
All right. Thank you very much for doing this interview with me.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
That's it. Thank you very much.
This young man's name is Robert Monahan. He's a 19-year-old Marine. He was a patient of mine aboard the hospital ship Repose. He had multiple shrapnel wounds in his leg and his arms. He was on the ship for 2 months, and in that 2-month period, he wrote me many, many letters, and as I'd make my rounds, he would hand them to me. So I got to know Bob Monahan very well. We kept him on the ship for 2 months, healed him, returned him to the field. The last letter I got from him was 3 May 1967, and he was killed in action 28 May 1967. I still have his letters. I hold them dear to my heart, I really do. But there were many others like that. I don't recall the names, I don't recall the faces, but I know they're on that wall in Washington, D.C. And they have a large part of my heart with them, every single one of them. This I wanted to bring along, or a couple more of the Marines. Well, I shouldn't say that one was a Marine and one was Army. Doug and Harold both sustained a lot of penetrating multiple shrapnel wounds. The reason why I wanted to show you that, because these 2 pictures taken of me and the corpsman were suturing some of Doug's wounds. And all that's written on the back to help you with that, okay? I know we need to show you the hospital ship Repose. I think she was just maybe a football field long, but if you were to see the Mercy today, the Mercy's 3 times the size. And she's been out to sea. And of course, she's been decommissioned, the Repose, and sunk somewhere. So she no longer exists, except in my heart. Some of these others are just their change of command that has gone on aboard the Repose. And this is Captain Gossam. He was the commander of the ship. Admiral Lacey, I really can't recall what his position was, but General Walt was the commanding general of the Marines in Vietnam. And of course, here I am as a lieutenant commander with black hair and not white hair. And Captain Naddat. He was the doctor aboard the ship, also the commanding officer. These other pictures are just pictures of what I wanted to show you, of the finest corpsmen that have ever lived, as far as I'm concerned. I didn't just teach them, they taught me, and they taught me a lot. They taught me how to suture, even, so. The other things are just the helicopter coming in, and you'd hear flight quarters, man your stations, and what they would do is when they bring them in, they'd line them up, take them off, take them down to the ramp, and take them through triage. And in triage, they would make a decision as to whether they were to go into surgery or could go to the ward situation or go on the death watch. I won't go through all of them for you. You can have them, and they're all written on the back. Okay. Again, Chandler, it's up to you what you'd like to do with them. I don't need them back. But with Bob Monahan, he started out by saying, "Dear Miss Leff, dear Miss Leff, dear Mom Leff, dear Mom Leff, dear Mom." And then he would sign it, "Your loving son, Bob." So I became his mother. I became his lover. I became his sister, his mother, everything. And this is what you became to the men on the ship. The greatest respect for them, but they had the greatest respect for their nurses and the doctors and the corpsmen. So you'll have different letters in here, even letters that I made copies of these two young men sending letters to me once they went back to the States. So you will find that all in here, and it's all yours to keep.
Thank you very much.